That's Jenny Cavnar channeling Hawk Harrelson, doing play-by-play a couple years ago for the Rockies on what used to be called something else. Now it's called AT&T Sportsnet. Jenny's been in the studio for years. She has covered baseball her entire career. She's called games on the radio, on TV, in both analyst and play-by-play roles. She's excited about the Rockies every year. This year, things are a little different in Denver with no Nolan Arenado homers to call. And Jenny joins us on International Women's Day on Hot Stove. Jenny, good morning. Good to see you.
Hey, great to see you guys. You know, you're saying that I've covered baseball my entire career. It's hard to think back, Maddie, that it was 15 years ago we were on San Diego Padre broadcasts together. So how about that?
Gosh, I know. And you have gotten better, and I have just kind of disintegrated into being this old dad kind of guy. And, man, your career is just going crazy. So congratulations on that. Tell us about what your role will be this year. You're doing everything. You're calling games, you're hosting pre and post coverage. What are you going to be doing in 2021?
Yeah, primarily hosting our pre and post game show, continuing that. This will be my 10th season with the Colorado Rockies broadcast team. And I'll also be backing up Drew Goodman doing play-by-play. So hopefully getting a few more games in the booth, a few more reps, and looking forward to actually doing a spring training game coming up next week down in the desert.
That's terrific. Jenny, on International Women's Day, it's really important to point out, I'm sure there's so many young girls watching and listening to you who now believe it's possible, if that's their dream, that they can do it. So I'm wondering for you what it's been like in terms of the people who reach out to you, whether it's the parents or the kids themselves, of fulfilling that kind of a role model position.
Well, Tom, I think that's really important, right? I know I was really overwhelmed by the reception I got in general. I mean, I think this is something that we had been working towards, in this business, trying to just kind of find a different way to do things. And I had such great support of my teammates. You see right there, Ryan Spilborgs, Jeff Houston, our production crew behind the scenes, people that really kind of pushed me in that direction and said, you can do this. And by the time, we got behind the mic and the game was done, I was in tears reading some of the response from parents, exactly what you said. I got to watch a baseball game with my daughter tonight and show her that anything is possible. And it's just crazy to be part of that conversation. Crazy to be part of that conversation, our game of baseball, and watched how far we've come on the women's front in the last decade. And obviously Kim Ng getting the general manager job with the Marlins this year has been, icing on the cake, so to speak, in a way, because it's opening doors on an executive front, on a decision-making front for women to be the face of that. So it's really, really cool to be part of the conversation. I just love what I do. I'm very passionate about, our team and being able to, by team, I mean our broadcast team, being able to work with those guys each and every day. And hopefully that shines through.
Jenny, it's LG. It is so
Hey,
good to
Lauren.
see you virtually. I obviously watched your career skyrocket from Denver, and I'm one of your biggest fans, obviously. And I think you've opened a lot of doors for other women here in the industry. In your opinion, and where would you like to see women in the booth and obviously in front offices, just across sports in general, and over the course of the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it's coming. I mean, we've seen Melanie Newman call games now with the Baltimore Orioles on the radio. She's going to get a ton of games this year. And the opportunity for them to start at the minor league level, I mean, that was nothing that I thought about doing growing up. I really didn't see anyone else, doing that in their careers. And so I think for me, in the generation and the era that I grew up in, and then Lauren, that you grew up in, a lot of them we saw on TV were sideline reporters or, starting to host in the studio. It's just one more thing that opens it up. And I think what's really cool about our team in Colorado is we actually have a producer that's a female. We have a director that's a female, in addition to other great, males around them. But it's important to note that in all of television broadcasts, there are so many jobs to be had, for anyone. And it's not just what you see on camera.
Yeah, 100%. All of those roles behind the scenes. You talked about all the great feedback you got after your first call. I had a moment at one point when I was covering the hockey team, the Colorado Avalanche, where a father brought his daughter up to me and he said, I now see that I can do this, that I can host pre and post game shows. Can you just reflect back on one of those moments? Because I know the desk is out in center field, out at Coors Field, and I'm sure you've had a lot of those moments.
Gosh, so many. And it's really neat, Lauren, like you said, to be able, like we're kind of that fishbowl out in center field when we do the pre and post game show. So for people to come up and be able to have that conversation face to face and not just on Twitter, it's so important and it means so much for sure. I think one of the stories that sticks out is the Nolan Arenado home run call that you saw. The guy that caught the ball actually gave it to his daughter, and they came out to center field and they gave it to me. They gave me the ball and presented it to me. So that was pretty special moment, just to think kind of full circle that, she was watching at home. Her dad caught the ball. They were able to have that conversation together about, what her future could look like in the game and in sports, and then give me the ball back. So that was really nice.
Well, Jenny, no more Arenado home run calls for you this year in Denver, right? But you do have Trevor Story. So I want to put you on the spot here because you get to see him every day, and yet this class of shortstops to me is the best of all time. So I'm giving you the choice of any shortstop right now in the game today, regardless of contract situation. Tell me who you're taking and why.
Man. It's so hard. I think you're right. I think we're seeing some of the best shortstops in the game. And if you just want to hone in on the National League West, we're seeing some of the best shortstops in the game right in the division, which is really cool. But I have to agree with what you guys did at Major League Baseball Network, and that's put Trevor Story #1. This is a guy that's gotten better and better each and every year he's been in the game. He's a 5-tool player. And I think for Trevor, some of his goals are really big. I mean, they're to continue to do that and to be that. He wants to be a 30-30 player. He was on pace last year to do that with 11 home runs and 15 stolen bases. And I think we're going to see a lot more speed from Trevor again this year. I think the one thing he's really missing in his toolkit is a Gold Glove, and I think that's what he wants. He really prides himself on his defense. I think that's something that Nolan has left him with that work ethic, and those two really pushed each other so hard on the left side of the field. To kind of break up that marriage is going to be sad to see, but his good friend Ryan McMahon's going to step in over there, and those two push each other hard as well. So I think you really do have to give it to Trevor. But like I said, man, in the NL West especially, it's fun to watch the shortstop position.
Yeah, you kind of got me into my question there, Jenny, regarding the Rockies roster construction. The corner infield, not too many teams go into a camp with questions at both corner infield spots. So if Ryan McMahon plays most of the season at third base, I know that they've got other candidates there, right-handed hitting players that could spell him occasionally. Who's going to play first? Because between C.J. Cron and Josh Fuentes, I mean, there are a lot of candidates for that spot as well. You
just wanted to say who's on first. I know you're trying to get that in.
I did. Greg Bird? I mean, who's going to play?
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's definitely up in the air for sure. And I think you have a couple of guys who have proven time in the major leagues, who have a proven bat, who have a proven power bat. You have Greg Bird, you have C.J. Cron. You also have this one guy, Josh Fuentes, who came on the scene and made a big splash last year. He played great defense at first base. He seemed to get a hit just about any time you needed a hit, and he's carried that into spring training. I know that doesn't mean a lot, but I think for him, it's really important, especially without his cousin, Nolan Arenado, on the team, to prove that he's still a major leaguer, that he belongs on this squad on some level. I don't think he's going to be your everyday first baseman, but I think his versatility keeps him on the team. He can play third. He can back up Ryan McMahon. He can play a corner outfield, probably left field if he needs to. So I think if his bat stays hot, if he stays consistent, he'll be on this team. In terms of everyday first baseman, you're talking about Cron, who's coming from the American League and mostly DHing. Is his defense there? Greg Bird, his defense is there. Is his bat there? And I think those are issues that they're going to have to sort out in spring training. Is he healthy? He had some weird injuries. But either guy that you go with is going to be great for the Rockies. Again, you talk about the pop that Cron has. This is a guy that hit 30 home runs just a couple of seasons ago. That could play pretty well at Coors Field, and something that they definitely need in their lineup. Greg Bird, hometown kid, went to Grandview High School right outside of Denver, Colorado. So he could have that dream story like a Kyle Freeland of putting on the hometown uniform.
Hey, regarding Arenado, and we'll leave you with this, Jenny. I'm thinking back on great franchise players that were traded. And when the Red Sox traded Nomar, fans were upset, but they kind of understood it. When the A's traded McGuire, fans were upset, they kind of understood it. Can you say the same about the Rockies fan base regarding Arenado's deal, or are there still bad feelings out there among fans?
Yeah, I think there's bad feelings, Maddie. I think it's going to be really hard for them to get over this one. I mean, you look at Todd Helton. He's really the only player that's been able to stay the entire time in a Rockies uniform. As the years have gone on, that was going to get tougher and tougher for anyone to do, especially with the kind of contract that Nolan signed. And then we hit a pandemic. Financially, it just wasn't going to make sense to have one guy make almost 30% of your entire salary. And obviously, with what was put out in the public with Nolan and some discrepancies with the front office, it just felt like his time was probably going to come to an end. I think fans that loved Troy Tulowitzki were still upset about that happening in 2015. And then their fan favorite in Nolan Arenado moves on. I think the only thing that's going to cure it over time is winning and finding a way to get this team back to the playoffs. They went back-to-back years in 2017 and 18 for the first time in franchise history. So if they can make it back in 5 years, maybe that will heal all wounds. But Nolan was such a fan favorite, and for obvious reasons, you have a generational player in your hometown uniform. It's hard to see that go.
All spot on for sure. Jenny, thanks for the visit today, and we hope we get to see you at the ballpark at some point when we're all, let out of our cages.
Tom, Maddie, Lauren, great to see you guys.